All right. Hello, hello, my friends. This is National Sales Director Leah Laughlin. Welcome to our third hangout for hashtag the One Thing Pacesetters program. And it is actually Friday afternoon, even though you're hopefully just watching this on Monday night. I'm in Sweden right now. If you are watching this on Monday night, Mary Kay asked me to speak at the European National Sales Director Assembly. And I mean, who could say no to that? And so Cliff and I are currently in Sweden. And I actually had this Pacesetters booked and planned before I knew I was going to be in Sweden. And I almost tried to make it happen live on the plane. I'm actually probably flying. I'm probably 30,000 feet in the air. I'm flying right now if you're watching this on the night. And I knew that the plane had Wi-Fi, so I'm like, that would kind of be fun to be broadcasting live. But of course, I didn't want to trust their Wi-Fi to actually make this happen. And so I'm pre-recording this for you guys so that it's ready to go on Monday night, and we can stay on track with our pace setters. And then we'll do our last one next Monday, and we will be home by then. We'll be back on Sunday, and then we'll be doing this live on Monday again. And so you can follow me in Sweden. I'm going to be periscoping our adventures as much as I can. And so you guys can follow our fun adventures in Sweden while I'm there. Okay, so congrats to those of you who finished a book 10, who had consultants who finished a book 10 and book 5. We had you post on Facebook just so we could celebrate and you could crow about your win and also your consultants' wins. I hope you were able to do that. And then I will, if I haven't already, I will post something that's going to ask you what you want to get out of the last hangout. And so I had a pretty loose agenda planned as we started this that I have added to and taken things away. And so now that we have our last one next week, I really want to give you what you feel like you need and what you want to hear. I've got a couple of plans on what I definitely will cover, but I want you to finish this feeling like you really got what you needed. And so I'm going to post that if I haven't already, and go ahead and post any topics or questions or things you want me to address. And I'll do my best to weave it all in there and finish out our hangout next week. And so I think that's about it. This week, you guys, you can earn some massive points for career conference registrations. So last week we talked about event campaigning and getting on the campaign trail. And so this week you're going to be implementing some of those strategies and ideas to get your people registered. And you get massive, massive points for your own personal registration and then getting your people registered. Also, another big point earner this week is personal guest to meeting. Remember last week I talked about how that was like really the catalyst to putting me in front of a lot of people, which was my one thing as a top director that I really focused on and was obsessed with, which produced growth and momentum and enabled me to work hard and smart. And so we're going to reward you with lots and lots of points for personal guests this week. So let's jump right in. We've got a lot to cover, and so I want to make sure I give you what I want to give you tonight. First of all, career surveys. Okay, so on our first hangout, we talked about this system, this being one of the 6 systems that really build strength in your organization. And then last week, we talked a little bit more about being in front of people and career surveys and how to track those numbers. And so I want to briefly maybe review some things that we've already gone over and then talk about your mindset on career surveys. Okay, so let me jump right in. For this system, it's important to have a couple things in place. And first of all, to have a great system that your unit can book times with you. If they are frustrated that they never know your schedule, or maybe it's always changing, or they're having to always ask you, and if they forget to ask you, then they're at the party and they really don't know your schedule, there can be a lot of frustration there. And if they're frustrated, they're not going to do it. They're not going to book them with you. And you want them to book lots and lots of career surveys with you. So we talked about the You Can Book Me program that you can use to create your schedule, and then you post it for your unit and they just book you within those times. And so it creates more organization, and then also you're not having to respond all the time to the question of what's your schedule like. They always know it. That's security for them. That helps them to be organized. It helps them to be on it. And then also you're never having to say no. So, they text you and say, hey, can you talk at 9 p.m. tonight? And that happened to be your family time and your night to be off. But then you don't want to say no to her. And she is telling you that's the only time that prospect can do the call, which is usually never the case. And so it just creates this awkward, like, I don't want to say no, but I want to protect my boundaries. And so having this program avoids that, and it just creates this great system that your consultants will book more career surveys, and then you're not gonna resent your business because you're having to say yes or no to all of these different times that your consultants are throwing at you. So I think that's really, really important to have that in place. Secondly, have an interview system and flow that is easily duplicatable. I think it's important to say pretty much the exact same thing on every single interview or career survey, whether on the phone or in person, so that your consultants can follow that system and they can feel like it's duplicatable. Okay, so I always started with, tell me about you. I want to hear about you. And then I shared a quick I story, which now my marketing video has replaced. I don't have to tell my I story for the 500 millionth time on the phone because they've seen it on my marketing video. But before I had that video, I would tell my I story. And then we would transition into what they thought about whatever they listened to. And for a lot of years, I used Linda Tupin's Choices CD or Pam Shaw's Hotline. Now, of course, I use my own video to that. So I would get their feedback from that. And then I would go into questions to get their feedback. And I would ask the exact same questions every single time. And then I would transition into closing them and overcoming objections. And so whatever flow you have for an interview, make it duplicatable, because it's going to equip consultants to feel like they can do it and like they can take over. And all they have to do is just follow your system. Okay? So I think that's another important piece of having a strong system for unit career surveys. Number 3, have a very clear and specific weekly and or monthly goal. My goal was always to be in front of 25 to 50 people per week. And so, and I was looking at that daily to make sure we were hitting that number. And so what is your personal goal for unit career surveys? Now, of the 25 to 50, they came from a lot of different places, but very, very specifically, what is your goal of how many people you want to be having a conversation with about the business opportunity, either live or on the phone, each week? Do you have a specific goal? I think that's really important. And then, of course, to track it using the systems we talked about last week. Number 4, communicate that goal to your unit and get them on board. And, have a conversation about, this week we want to talk to 10, 20, 30 women about the Mary Kay business opportunity, and give them a place to participate and win within that. I've done it 2 ways. I've asked people to tell me, like, hey, how many do you want to contribute? Our goal is 30 this week. What's your goal to contribute to that you're going to do personally? And then I've also assigned a number to people. I have figured out what our unit goal was, and then I've broken it down into who our key people are. And I've actually asked them, like, hey, can you take 5 this month? Can you take 10 this month? Contribute to our unit goal of whatever the number was. Okay, so enroll your unit in this, and then you can even daily, weekly, and monthly recognize who's participating. You could have a thermometer on a flyer that you're filling in as you go and as you're doing these unit career surveys. It gives people a place to win. It gives them a place to feel like they can contribute and be a part of the team. And then it allows you to be very, very intentional about the people you're in front of, which brings in new agreements, which brings in stars, which brings in production, which brings in growth. Okay, so be very specific about the goal, and then enroll your unit into that goal. Number 5 is have a great system for tracking and following up. So before I had my iPad, I just had a paper version that had 12 little boxes in it that I would fill in as I was in front of people. Once I had my iPad, I had a spreadsheet, and you may have something different. You may track it on a whiteboard in your office. I mean, there's so many different ways to do it. Just do it in a way that works for you and your brain and how you think, but track it and use it to follow up. I mean, I looked at that binder or that spreadsheet every single day, filled it in with people, reviewed how many what number we were up to and how far we were away from our goal. I was highlighting our sharp prospects as I went, and then remember taking the really, really hot prospects, putting them on a Post-it note, and then following up with those people, or at least considering what their next layer was and how I wanted to follow up each day. Okay, and then the sixth thing I want to talk about before we move on to another topic, and this is possibly the most important point I want to make about career surveys, is to be mentally prepared for them. Mentally prepared. This is one of those things that it is so easy to just go through the motions, just to finish it, get the call over, or to multitask. Especially after you've done a lot, or you get into a season of your business where you're doing a lot. You guys, I remember days of just like career survey after career survey after career survey on the phone. And I'm like, if I have to say my story one more time, I'm going to shoot myself. And it's just so easy to multitask or go through the motions. And I really had to learn and train myself to be mentally prepared for each one, and to have a fresh renewal of energy for each of those calls. Otherwise, you're wasting your time. If you are not all in and present for that moment, on the phone or in person with that woman, to hear her story, to share your story, and to share Mary Kay with her, I mean, you're wasting your time. The difference between doing a career survey and being all in for it and mentally prepared versus going through the motions and slightly distracted, it's the difference between a yes and a no. I really believe that. It is the difference, if she's interested, of course, between getting a yes and getting an agreement or getting a no. Okay, you being all in for that career survey is so, so important. So I'm gonna just share with you kind of the mental exercise that I use when I am about to share the opportunity with someone on the phone or in person. And it's just 1 to 2 minute mental exercise that I do. And it's called being inverse paranoid. Okay, get inverse paranoid before career surveys. So usually we're paranoid about the negative stuff. Okay, and we all deal with this, and I think maybe more with new consultants or new directors, you just have these paranoid, negative thoughts that nobody's really interested, and I'm just wasting my time, or what is she going to think? She's going to think I'm too pushy. She's judging me. We have all this negative stuff about what we think people think of us. And we often have some negative expectations at parties. And if you're not in this place, if you're past this, which I think a lot of directors do get past this, your consultants are thinking these things. They're going into their parties thinking, nobody wants to buy. They're all judging me. They think Mary Kay is silly. They have all this negative stuff going on in their head before their parties. I promise you, your consultants are probably thinking these things unless they've been equipped to switch it around. Because we're all inclined to think negatively unless we're really intentional about positive thoughts and positive affirmations and positive expectation. And maybe she's not even aware. I'll tell a quick story. I don't want to get off on too much of a tangent with this, but I thought I was a pretty positive person before Mary Kay. But once I got into Mary Kay and got exposed to just a new level of thinking and a new way of thinking, I realized how negative my self-talk was. And so when I was a new consultant, you guys, there was one thing and one thing only that I did not do on my new consultant checklist. And I'm a checklist woman, man. You give me a checklist, it's done. But there's one thing I intentionally did not complete. And the one thing on my new consultant checklist was to share 5 positive affirmations with your director. And I think I could either send her an Intelliverse message back in the days of Intelliverse, or like record it and send it to her, or write it out. I don't remember, but it was creating these 5 positive affirmations and share them with your director. I had 2 problems. Number 1, I did not know what positive affirmations were. I mean, truth be told, I'm like, what are positive affirmations? I'm like, I've lost them. Did they come in my starter kit? Where are my positive affirmations? I cannot find them. I did not know what they were. Problem number 2, when I found out what they were, I was like, oh, I have officially joined a cult. These people are going to make me chant things to myself that are ridiculous. Okay, so my opinion of positive affirmations early on in Mary Kay, I just thought it was like kooky. I thought it was really kooky. And so, is that even a word, kooky? So I didn't do them. But then, you know, being exposed to the Mary Kay world and the Mary Kay positivity and way of thinking, there's this turning point in my business. And it was either when I was in DIQ or about to go into DIQ. It was after the point I had made the decision to be all in for Mary Kay. Okay, so it was right around the DIQ timeframe in my business, which was about 6 or so months into Mary Kay, maybe 8 months, no, 6 months, somewhere around there. I was working on doing every part of the individual consultation because I was kind of chickening out on some parts of it, sometimes even chickening out on doing them because they felt awkward to me, and you know, I hadn't really mastered that skill yet. So I was really like focused on mastering that skill and booking the career survey on the spot, versus a habit I had kind of gotten into was like thinking, oh, I'll just call her the next day and set it up, like as if that ever works. And so I'm like, okay, I'm gonna book these career surveys on the spot. And so I was really, you know, I was gonna do it. You know, I was just going into that party focused, and that's what I was gonna do. Okay, so it was a really sharp group of women at this party, and this particular girl I really liked, really sharp, really great person. And so we're doing the individual consultation, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. And so she buys the product, and she bought, you know, a good amount of stuff, and then we booked a follow-up. So like everything was going well, but for whatever reason, I just chickened out. I didn't ask her to do the career survey. And I just was like, oh my gosh. And so I got up from our individual consultation, and I remember walking out to my car because I was going to get her her because my inventory was in my trunk. So I'm walking out, and I remember this like clear as day. I'm like stepping. And these words, I said these words in my mind, verbatim, you guys, verbatim. I said, you are so stupid. You always mess that up. Verbatim. That's what I said to myself. And it kind of jolted me. It stopped me dead in my tracks. And was that the first time I had said that to myself? No. It was the first time I had the awareness of how defeating and how negative those words were. And being in Mary Kay and exposed to the Mary Kay world just gave me this new level of awareness of this conversation and this self-talk and these words I was using in my mind. And so that was the moment I realized how important positive affirmations were. Those things that I thought were so kooky 6 months earlier, I'm like, I need these in my life because I need to change this negative thinking. Because wow, how defeating is it to say to yourself, you are so stupid. You always mess that up. And so that started me on this journey of really changing my thought life and changing my self-talk and having positive affirmations, which I have done ever since then. I have a journal where they're all written out, and they're a combination of statements and prayers and quotes that I love and just empowering things that I meditate over during my quiet time in the morning. And it has truly transformed my life. I mean, it's transformed who I am in the inside. And so I share this with you just to make a point that to be, first of all, for you to be aware of the thoughts going on in your mind. And secondly, to be aware that your consultants, majority of them, probably have some pretty icky things going on in their mind. And their thought life is probably based in fear and scarcity, even though she may seem to be a very positive, put together person on the front end. And so I think it's a conversation we need to always be having with our consultants, what's happening, what conversation is happening in her mind. Okay, so let me bring it back to my point. What was my point? Okay, my point was mentally preparing for career surveys and really mentally preparing for anything. And instead of being inverse paranoid, like thinking about all the negative things, to be so intentional about envisioning the positive. And here's how I do that. Like I'll imagine her thinking that our conversation was the highlight of her day. I will actually imagine her having the thought that like, wow, that's the first time somebody's really asked about me and what I think and what my dreams are. That was really like, that gave me a lot of energy. I will imagine her thinking that just about having a conversation. I will actually imagine her coming back to me a year later, thanking me for sharing Mary Kay with her and telling me how much it's blessed her life. I will imagine her that she's been praying for an opportunity like Mary Kay. I will imagine her I'll actually imagine her at the car dealership picking up a free car. I will imagine her walking across stage at seminar in a director suit as a brand new director. Okay, so I'll spend like a minute thinking through these thoughts before I pick up the phone. And I do this on coaching calls with my directors. I do this before guest events, before parties. I just have this little moment that I take to imagine positively what kind of outcome I want to have from the time I'm investing in whatever activity I'm about to do. And does that always happen? Of course not. But here's the thing. It costs you nothing to take a minute or two and imagine these things. And if they don't happen, you're out nothing. It costs you nothing to spend time mentally preparing for it. And here's the thing. You get the life that you expect. And you create the life that you're expecting in your mind. And if you're expecting to just rush through the call and she's probably not interested, then you are more likely to get that. But if you're choosing to be inverse paranoid and mentally creating ideal expectations, you guys, you are so much more likely to experience them. And you can do this in any area of your business. And this mental exercise is powerful. It creates positive expectancy in everything that you invest your time in. And the universe has this way, you guys, of giving you what you are looking for and giving you what you expect. So check your expectations. You guys, if you're expecting everybody to not be interested, annoyed to do the call, that is what you will get. But if you're expecting women who get the chance to talk to you, that being the highlight of her day, and she's praying for something like Mary Kay and envisioning her picking up a car on the stage, you are more likely to produce those kinds of expectations. Okay, I mean, I could go on and on and on about the power of what you're expecting in your mind and how that is the life you are experiencing currently. And that is what you're experiencing in your business. Okay, so that's just some tips for setting up strong systems for career surveys and strong systems for sharing the opportunity with your unit and in your personal business, of course, too. Okay, so let's switch to my next topic, which is to boldly close career surveys and guests at the meeting and tracking your prospects, okay? I actually got the question from a director who's in this Pacesetters, Cinda. She voxed me and said, okay, I know I need to boldly close people, but how do you do that? And how do you close guests at a meeting? And how do you close your people's guests? And so let me process through some of that information. Remember last week I told you that 1 year early on as a director, our unit recruiting average was 1 out of 7, and that sucks. And so I decided to change that. And so I really went to school on how to close people in the moment, like words to use, positive expectations. That was a big one. What I just got done talking about, just like expecting that they could make a decision on the spot and that they could and that they should make a decision on the spot. I was so convinced that women needed to be close on the spot because I knew fear would set in, and fear robs a lot of people of their dreams. And I didn't want to give her that space for paralysis by analysis to set in and for fear to set in, because I didn't want her dreams to be snatched away by fear. So I was so mentally convinced that she needed to make a decision now, or it's going to cost her her dreams. And so it was just a lot of shifting my mind and having confidence in the fact that I could close her on the spot, and just getting the words. And so I listened to these CDs by Pam Shaw and Gloria Mayfield Banks about how to do this, and I just got obsessed with it. I got obsessed with learning how to close people on the spot, either on the phone or in person at a career survey or at my meeting. And I will say that it is a little bit of intuition, okay? It's just a lot of just intuition and reading between the lines. And I think we learn this intuition after you're just in front of so many people. Like, you just learn to do it. So a lot of it just comes from experience, that you've been in front of so many people that you learn when to push and when to sort of pull back because she's getting nervous. And you learn how to read her body language and how to read her eyes as you're sharing with her. You just got to get in front of a lot of people to gain that experience and that intuition. And also, you want it to come from a pure heart. That's one of the things that people are reading about you in between the lines, is where your heart and your motivation is. And people sense desperation, and they also sense a pure heart. And so we really got to put ourselves in a place where we're coming from a pure heart, where we're really just wanting what's best for her. And sometimes that's Mary Kay, and sometimes it's not. But just coming from purity of intention and desiring to serve her and to honor her and to want what's best for her life. People sense that. Okay, so check your motivations. Check the purity of your heart. We're always communicating those things, maybe not with our words, but that's something people can read in between the lines. And something to learn, you want to learn to be is very bold and direct. Like, you don't want to beat around the bush. If you're wishy-washy, people sort of sense that. So you want to be direct with women, but without, not so bold and harsh that you're causing a wall to come up between you and her. Okay, so very direct, bold, don't beat around the bush, don't be wishy-washy, but then not so strong that you're causing people to like say, hold off, woman. The best analogy I've heard is a mosquito and a butterfly. Like, when you're sharing the opportunity, you want to be a butterfly, not a mosquito. Okay, so a mosquito and a butterfly, they're both bugs. Okay, they'll fly around, in your face and kind of bug you because they're bugs. But there's a big difference between a mosquito and a butterfly. A mosquito, you want to slap it away and kill it. A butterfly's beautiful, and so it'll fly around in your face, but it's polite and it's lovely and it's beautiful, and you don't mind being bugged by a butterfly. Okay, so that's what you want to be when sharing the opportunity. You want to be the butterfly, not the mosquito. So you want to fly around in her face. You want to be direct and bold, but beautiful and polite and charismatic and coming from a pure heart, so people don't want to slap you away and kill you because you're biting them. Okay, so yeah, you get better at these things with practice. And so at my meeting, I, of course, shared my story. I had a dream book that was a large, photo album that had 8x10 pictures in it with just different stories about my journey that I shared sort of during I would share a little bit of my story and then went to my dream book. And then we did this marketing survey that is on my website. I'm sure you've seen it floating around the Mary Kay world, but we would go through questions that they would actually answer, that they're writing on, and they would share their answer out loud. I did these marketing surveys at my meetings, at my business debuts, and at my skincare classes. And there are many different versions. I don't think there's one right or wrong version, but I loved leaving with their sheets that her name, her number, her feedback, her interest level on a scale of 1 to 10. Like, I really used those sheets to follow up. And so she would fill those sheets up, and then I would close with A, B, or C. And there's many, many different ways to do this, but I just liked A, B, or C. And so I would actually say, okay, right now we're going to give you an opportunity to make a decision about the business opportunity. And right now you're either an A, a B, or a C. Okay, so if you're an A is absolutely, girl, I am ready for a new opportunity. I need something new. I need extra money. You guys look like a lot of fun. I want to work with you. I'm ready to get started. Absolutely. And we have agreements up here. If you're an A, we're going to have you come up and fill out an agreement, and I want to meet you and just give you more information about how to get your business started. Okay, B's. If you're a B, that means buy me a coffee because I'm interested and I'm intrigued, but I need a little bit more information, girl. So buy me a coffee and share some more information with me about this. Also, if you're a B and we follow up with you, your consultant gets credit for that, and it helps her with her training. So we'd love to connect with you after and share some more information with you. C is customer for life. You're not really interested in the business opportunity, but you want to be a happy customer and pay full price for your products from your consultant and just enjoy the Mary Kay product line that we have to offer. And let me tell you that we love our customers. If everybody signed up to do Mary Kay, we'd be out of business. So we do love our customers. And so I would do that, and then we would turn the music up, you guys. And I also, after that was done, I went up to every single guest and looked her in the eye and asked her if she was an A, B, or a C. A's and B's obviously were easy. A's did the agreement. B's, I would, if she was closable, I would try to close her. Okay, because sometimes they're just nervous and then they're not ready. And so I would try to close her and do like a real quick mini career survey with her and say like, what's holding you back? What's holding you back? And just would try to close her really quickly. Sometimes I could, sometimes I couldn't. And so we set up the career survey on the spot if I couldn't actually close her. The C's were also easy. Because either they were just straight up not interested, but I would still set up a career survey with them. We still career surveyed the C's, and my consultants knew to do that. You do have to train your consultants on what to expect and what to do, because they need to be closing her out while you're going around the room to all of the guests. Okay, guys, I would do this when there were 30, 40 guests in the room. I know it took a long time and it was slightly crazy. But the consultants knew what to do. They were getting her order. They were booking her follow-up. They were booking the career survey because they knew that's what we were doing with B's and C's. And they were just closing out with her, which gave me time to go to all of the guests in the room. And would sometimes people leave before I got to them? Yes, but I still had their paper and I could follow up. And if the consultant was trained well and knew what to do, she still closed the sale. She still got the booking. She still set up the career survey, even if I didn't get the chance to get there, okay? So I think the biggest mistake directors make is they close all of the guests with their marketing, but then they don't go and connect with them one-on-one and individually. I think that's really, really important to do. Now, it's important to be very, very in tune with her body language. I already alluded to this, but really watch her body language. When I was up to each guest individually, trying to get out of her, you'll notice, you guys, when you've crossed a line, she'll physically pull back. She'll pull her body back. If you've crossed a line and she's about to put a wall up, she'll pull back. And that's when I knew to pull back. I didn't like try to push even further. That's when I knew, okay, pull back. She's starting to wall up. She's starting to feel uncomfortable. And I would only push so far to that line until I knew she was feeling a little bit uncomfortable and uneasy. And was trying to communicate to me like, okay, you're starting to go too far. I would pull back. Her eyes. If she's like looking at her phone or looking at the door, she's ready. She's done. She's ready to go. You need to pull back. You need to be aware of that, because if you keep talking and keep pushing when she's looking at her phone or when her body is pulling back, you have gone too far. If you have an especially a guest who's especially resistant, you will be able to tell with her body language and her eyes and her facial expression. With those people, I am just trying to make a connection and build rapport. Those will be people I may not try to close on the spot because she already doesn't trust me. She already has some resistance about the Mary Kay opportunity. I just want to find out about her, find out what she's interested in, and make some kind of connection that would cause her to put her arms down. And so sometimes that's not trying to close her on the spot. That's just trying to build a warm connection so that she likes me and she trusts me and I have favor with her, so that further down the line, maybe I could close her. Or at least she'd be a loyal person who has a good image about Mary Kay. So you need to be able to tell like who those people are who are super resistant, because you don't, in my opinion, try to close them. You're just going to push them away even more, okay? So you got to be really in tune with body language and eye contact. But understand that people do need a push. They need a push. I needed a push when I signed up. My consultant pushed me. She was pushy with me, because I needed somebody to push me. Okay, we get way too sensitive and worried about being too pushy. And so then you just turn into kind of this wishy-washy girl who's not confident and bold about what you're doing. And then people sense that. And, you know, would a woman leave a high-paying job to follow you? It's a question we always have to ask. Would a woman leave a high-paying job to follow you? And they only do when you are clear about what you're doing and you're bold and direct about what you're doing and not apologizing for it or being too wishy-washy about it. Because I know a mistake that I made early on as a director is I defaulted to the follow-up way too quick. And so if she gave me some resistance or an objection, I was too quick to say like, okay, well, you know what, think about it and I'll follow up with you if you don't mind, like blah, 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 blah. And you lose a lot of people when you do that. And so people need a little bit of a push, but as long as you're a butterfly and you're sensing when their wall is going up, you want to push people in a way that inspires them versus causes them to put a wall up. Use the word imagine a lot. I love the word imagine, and I think that connects with people on a really personal level. And so if they're getting close to making a decision, but you can tell they're hesitating, I would say like, well, imagine like really in a year, you could be driving for free with Mary Kay. You can earn a free car. Or if that's too big for her, I would say like, imagine making an extra couple $100 a month. Like, what would you do with that money? And so use that word to paint a picture for people of what could be in Mary Kay. Take them out of their current situation and take them to a place that they can envision that you think might be motivating for her. And you want to use her personality style and what you're learning about her to know what place to take her. There are some people who can go to a really big place, but then there are some people who just need to go to a small place of making a couple $100 extra per month. But imagine, paint a picture for your prospects and take them to a place that they can envision. I did work with just a crazy sense of urgency with following up and trying to close on the spot. Like, I went into my meeting, again, very mentally prepared, thinking like, I am closing people tonight. Or on a career survey, thinking like, I am closing this girl. Like, I am getting a yes, and I'm getting it today. I'm getting it now. And so I spent a lot of time creating that positive expectation, okay? Women make emotional decisions in the moment. And so we've got to take advantage of that and work like urgency. And if we don't close her in the moment, then we work with urgency to follow up with her using our tracking sheets. Like, you better believe, first thing I did in my working day after I had my meeting is I grabbed those sheets and I was following up like a crazy savage beast with the women I was in front of. I was following up. I was coaching consultants on how to layer them. I was making sure they were confirmed for their career surveys to follow up. I mean, I was a beast and crazy intentional about working with urgency to get in front of them again, to take them to that next layer. Okay, so work with urgency. Don't let all this gaps and days of time go between being in front of people and then following up again. You've got a very close window of time. You wait till the end of the week, she forgets who you are. She forgets the fun and the connection that you made with her. Okay, so now I'm going to go into overcoming objections when sharing the opportunity and how to do that. So I truly believe that our business is timeless. And I love that about Mary Kay. I love that about Mary Kay. It is timeless. And let me actually jump ahead to make sure I still have time to cover everything I want. Oh my gosh. Okay. Talk faster. That's what I need to do, is talk faster. Okay. Our business is timeless. I remember getting this question from Mary Kay once when I was a new director, Gen Y director. They were saying, what is it that's going to attract Gen Y to Mary Kay? And yes, generations are so different and they do look for different things and they do have a different perspective. But I just kept thinking, like, it's timeless. They want what every other woman wants, regardless of age or background. They want flexibility with their time. They want to be able to design their life and have freedom and choices. They want unlimited earning potential. They want to be rewarded for their effort and their work, and they want to have choices financially, and they want safety and security for their family, and then they want their family to be a priority. They don't want to miss things with their kids on their journey to success. So those are timeless things about our opportunity, which makes me love Mary Kay even more. There are things that women want today, yesterday, and tomorrow, regardless of age or generation. The Mary Kay opportunity, it's not a trend. It's not a fad. It's a timeless opportunity that's always relevant to women. But as time and technology changes, the way we engage and the way we communicate has to change. Okay? Opportunity is timeless, but the way we engage, it does have to shift. And the way we speak to women and the language we choose to use and how we choose to communicate does need to change as the times change. And so because of internet and social media, people are being sold so much more on a daily basis than they were even 10 years ago. There are open portals to our life that anyone can reach us. I mean, it still blows my mind that the co-author of the book that we're reading, found me and knew that we were tweeting about the one thing. There are just open portals that we have access to all kinds of people, and they have access to us. And we're being sold so much more on a daily basis. And because we're being sold so much more, people have more of a wall up. They're not as trusting. And we have to find effective ways to get people's attention, because their attention is everywhere and they're distracted and seeing everything. And so we have to communicate in effective ways that gets their attention and sets us apart and makes us different from every other person who's trying to sell them something. Okay, so we have to engage differently to make a connection. So let's talk about how to do that. You want to use validation and coaching to overcome objections. Okay, validation and coaching to overcome objections. Let's talk about what that means. Okay, a classic sales technique is feel, felt, found. I'm sure you've all heard that. And although it has some effectiveness, I hope you've heard by now to flush that down the toilet, because it's outdated and irrelevant and does not speak to today's woman. Feel, felt, found. Because what happens is you make it all about you. Oh, I know how you feel. And she's thinking, no, you don't. And then you go on to say, I felt the same way too. You're making it about you. But I found that, blah, 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 blah. And she's thinking, this girl isn't even hearing me. She's not even listening to what I'm saying. It's all about her. Okay, so flush, feel, felt, found down the toilet, because we have to make it about her and not about us. Okay, so when overcoming objections, instead of feel, felt, found, we validate first, and then we use coaching questions to engage her in a conversation about the opportunity that's going to bring her wall down. Versus feel, felt, found, man, wall is up. Wall is up, and she doesn't want to hear it. Okay, so we can do this when sharing the opportunity, and even you can use this even when coaching your consultants and offspring sales directors. So this technique is also, really in any conversation you have, you can use this with your husband and your kids. You validate, then you use coaching questions to engage in a conversation that they're open to hearing what you're saying. This can be used in any conversation. And what do we do as leaders in Mary Kay? We talk to people all day long. That is essentially what we do. We have conversations all day long with customers, with hostesses, with prospects, with consultants, with directors. We talk to people all day long. And so when you have more effective conversations, your business will grow exponentially. When your conversations can be more engaging, more effective, when they're honoring people and valuing people and leading people, your business will grow from that. It's imperative to learn to engage and affirm and honor people with the language and even the tone that we choose to use when talking to people, okay? So validating is essentially agreeing with her and letting her know that I hear you. I hear what you're saying, and I'm gonna honor you by agreeing with you. Instead of saying feel, felt, found, you're just disagreeing with her and making it about you. Okay, so just a simple example, she says, I'm too busy. I'm too busy. Okay, so we used to respond with feel, felt, found. Like, oh, I know how you feel. You know, I was really busy too, and I felt the same way, but I found that when I got a weekly plan sheet and filled it out, I found all the open spaces in my in my schedule and I worked it out. And she's like, wah, 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 wah. Okay, so instead of going into feel, felt, found, now we respond like, girl, yeah, I can see that you've got a full plate. We just agree with her. We just simply agree with her. Like, yeah, you are maxed out. You're busy. And by doing that, we are communicating that I hear you. I'm honoring you because I'm actually listening. And her wall comes down. Her wall comes down, and we don't make it about us and our story, which causes her to put a wall up. And then we take it a step further. After we validate what she said, we take it a step further and we engage her with questions to overcome her objections. Okay, so then we engage with a question, and we need to start asking more questions and making way fewer statements. Okay, we need to ask more questions and make fewer statements and stop throwing up Mary Kay all over people. We need to listen 80% of the time and only talk or ask questions 20% of the time. In sales, whether selling a customer, selling, even selling our consultants on the Mary Kay opportunity, an old sales adage is to find a need and fill it. Find a need and fill it. And that is still valid, but the only way we find a need is not by telling her how great Mary Kay is and how great our products is. Okay, remember, make fewer statements, ask more questions. The only way we find a need and fill it is to ask her questions and draw out of her what she actually thinks she needs, not what we assume that she needs. We make way too many assumptions and push our opinions onto her. Okay, quick example. Maybe we see a guest at a meeting, she's working full time and her kids are in daycare. Okay. And we see that and we assume she wants to be home with them like we do, because we're passionate about that and raising our kids ourselves and being work at home moms. And so we say something where we make a statement like, girl, you need to do Mary Kay so you can be at home and raise those babies yourself, or something like that. And that could be the last thing she wants to do. And even maybe if in her heart she really does want that, she may not even realize it or be willing to admit that yet. And you've just offended her, is what you've done. You've just made this statement, assuming she has a need that she may not even have or know that she has yet. And you may have pushed her away or offended her. So instead, you ask questions like, hey, what do you love most about your career right now? Okay, so you engage her in a conversation and continue to ask questions to find the need instead of assuming it and making a statement. Okay. Emerson has this beautiful quote that I learned in coaching school. The more beautiful the questions, the more beautiful the answer. The more beautiful the questions, the more beautiful the answer. We just need to learn to ask really beautiful questions. And our book, The One Thing, touches on that. If you've gotten to that chapter, I'm not sure which one it is, the focusing question, and how really good questions lead to really good answers. It's the same concept here. We need to be very effective at asking beautiful questions to draw people out. I recently actually attended coaching school this past September, and then again in Cincinnati, it's the DSWA coaching school. And I realized that my weak link in coaching is not that I wasn't asking questions. I got pretty good at asking questions, but I was asking leading questions. Okay, so I was using my questions to take someone where I thought she should go or where I wanted her to go. And what I learned that instead of doing that is to ask neutral questions, or to ask questions from a neutral place where you're taking yourself and your desires out of the equation, and you are asking purely out of curiosity, not because you want to take her somewhere she wants to go, which is really kind of a form of manipulation. Even though your intentions may be good, it is better to ask out of place of being neutral and just asking out of curiosity with no judgment. And so we need to do that with our customers and our prospects, and also with our consultants and our offspring sales directors. And so I asked her questions, she wouldn't normally ask herself. You don't always ask yourself, you don't know to ask yourself some questions, and we all have our own personal blind spots. And so you're just asking her questions out of curiosity with no judgment that she would never ask herself, so that she can discover her own answers and her own solutions, even if they're not your answers and your solutions that you would have come up with. Okay, people will ultimately do what they want to do. Okay, we all will. Nobody likes to be told. I don't, you don't, nobody does. People like to come up with their own solutions. And her solution that she comes up with, and I'm talking whether this is a customer, prospect, team member, director, anybody, her solutions she comes up with are far, far better than any great solution that you could give her. Because when she comes up with it, she takes ownership of it. She owns it and she sees it through to the end. And in leading our people, which we lead our customers and our prospects too, not just people on our team, in leading people, this is the way that we create independent thinkers and leaders who do not need us, is by asking beautiful questions so that they can come up with their own beautiful answers and take ownership of their own thoughts, their own ideas, their own decisions, and their own solutions. And that is a beautiful thing, to build a unit of consultants who don't need you, because they're learning to think for themselves. They don't need you for the answer. And to build a national area of directors who actually do not need you, because they know how to think for themselves. And they also believe that you trust them enough that they can think for themselves and come up with their own effective solutions. Okay? So let's go back to sharing the opportunity, because I kind of got off on a coaching tangent when it comes to consultants and directors. So let's bring it back. What to focus. Here are just some gems when sharing the opportunity. These are just some things I've learned along the way. Is to ask at meetings, like if you want a really effective question at a meeting, or maybe even more effectively when you're meeting with someone for coffee about the opportunity, is just to say, what brought you here today? What brought you here today? Find out why she even got dressed and put her makeup on and went out. What brought you here today? That's a little nugget of a question that you can ask, again, to find out what's going on in her heart and her mind. This is another one that will help you to know what personality style she is. And then once you know, you can speak her language. Because once we know her personality style, we want to speak that language that she's going to hear. And we adjust our personality to her. Not that we become fake or phony. We just make adjustments so that we're speaking her language. And so there's a small child knocking on my office door. Let me text my nanny real quick. Good thing the door's locked. Knocking. Can you get him for her? I'm not sure which one it is. The joys of working from home, right? Okay, so what brought you, okay, no, I was on to the next one. Okay, you can ask, would you prefer a brief overview, a little more information, or all of the details? Okay, that helps you know her personality style. Would you prefer a brief overview? That's going to be a D or an I. A little more information, that's an I or an S, or all of the details, more likely to be an S or a C. Okay, so just asking that simple question can really help to guide how you want to share the opportunity, because then you know what she's looking for. If she just says like, girl, just give me a brief overview, then you know she's probably a D, and you know to keep it brief. And if you keep going on and on and on to a D, she will want to kill you. Okay, and it puts a wall up. And so that's just a little nugget, a little question you can ask to more effectively share the opportunity. Another one that I've learned is to say we have 3 pricing options. You can do this in front of guests at a meeting. I think would be really effective. We have 3 pricing options. The first is retail prices for purchasing as a customer. The second is you get a discount for allowing me to pamper your friends and family, or at cost when you wear it and share it. Okay, so that's some language you can use to talk about their choices and their options. Okay, I'm going to quickly go over some using coaching to overcome objections. And and actually, let me first say, Charlotte Goody-Kuntz, you are a brilliant genius, and thank you for creating this document that you have so graciously shared with all of us. Charlotte is a Premier Club senior sales director in my area who attended DSWA coaching school, and she just immediately implemented some of the things that she learned and just beautifully created this document that, if I haven't already, I'm going to post in our Facebook group. It's Overcoming Objections with Coaching. And so there are coaching questions you can use to overcome objections, and she broke them down into different categories. I'm just going to go over a few just for the sake of time. But Charlotte, thank you, and this is brilliant. And so remember, you validate first, so you agree and you hear her first, and then you ask a question to engage in conversation. Okay, so I can't sell anything. That's the objection she would give you. And so you might ask, and this is on the document, so you can check this out. You might say, like, well, how do you feel about just sharing products with friends and family? Okay, so you're helping her to reframe the word sell, because we know that all we do is share with friends and family. We just share the product, and if they want it, great, and if they don't, that's okay too. It's not a hard sell. And so by asking her that question, you're helping her to reframe the word sell. Now, if you would have given her a statement and said, like, well, we're not pushy sales, we're not the pushy sales type, and like all you're really doing is selling, is sharing with friends and family. I mean, sure, that might be effective to give her that information, but how much more effective for her to come up with the answer? Like, how do you feel about just sharing the products with some friends and family? Okay, so you're engaging her in a conversation versus telling her, I don't have the time, I'm too busy. It's a common objection that we get. You could ask, well, how long have you been too busy? When do you think you won't be busy? What are you missing out on now that you want to have more time for? What are you missing out on now in life that you would love to have more time for? Hey, you know what? If nothing changes with your schedule, 5 to 10 years, what might have you missed out on because of not having enough time? Okay, so those would be examples of questions you would ask to coach her after validating her. And Charlotte broke it down into many, many categories, so check that out, and that can be a great tool to use when sharing the opportunity. Okay, you guys, let me minutes to go through a lot of stuff. We have 35 minutes to go through a lot of stuff. Okay. I real quickly want to share some words I've recently used to learn to use at my guest events when I'm sharing information. And really, these could be used one-on-one too, but I have used them more often when sharing the opportunity with a group. And I listened to a webinar that Darren Hardy did. And in that webinar, they went over the top 5 things that high-achieving people are looking for in a career. And just to share them with you really quick, which I was just kind of blown away by these, but also just really excited about these. The number one thing that high-achieving people are looking for in a career is people. Really great people want to work with other really great people. And the women in Mary Kay, of course, we know are women of excellence with a spirit of love and mutual respect. And there's just a sisterhood, a beautiful sisterhood about Mary Kay. And so you would tell guests that and say, we're looking for women of excellence who want to be a part of our Mary Kay family. What impact would it have on your life to be surrounded by a positive support system? Okay, and what I'm doing is I'm going to walk you through these 5 things and share with share with you how I would actually say this in front of a group. And you make the statement, but then you finish it with a question that I just asked. What impact would it have on your life to be surrounded by a positive support system? And if you're in a group, kind of depends on the dynamics. You could actually get people to give you feedback, or it could just be a food for thought question. Something that they're not maybe giving you feedback, but something you're just asking them to ponder in their own minds. Okay, so number 1 is people. The second is challenge. High-achieving people are looking for a good challenge. They want to be challenged. They are motivated by challenge. Third one is opportunity. They want opportunities for flexibility, for income, for choices, for perks. And then 4 is personal growth. High-achieving people are hungry to grow. And then the fifth and last on the list, these are in ranking order. Number 5 is money. Okay. When we're sharing the opportunity, we often think to start with money. Okay. Based on what high achieving people really want, that's yes, still a priority. Absolutely talk about it, but it's last on the list. Okay. High achieving people are more interested in who they're going to work with, how they're going to be challenged, what opportunities and choices they're going to have, and how they're going to be engaged to grow personally. And then they want a good income too. Okay. And so, so I already shared with you, my statements and questions about people with challenge. I just say high achieving women are looking for a fun challenge, which is exactly what Mary Kay is. It's hard work to build a Mary Kay business, but it's challenging and rewarding. And I would say that it is hard work because you want to attract the type of woman who wants to work hard. Okay. We don't want to attract people who want a free ride, because that's not what Mary Kay is about. You want to attract women who are willing to, roll up their sleeves and get to work. For opportunity, I would say there is no glass ceiling in the Mary Kay business. The opportunity is absolutely endless, and the perks are endless. With unlimited earning potential and complete flexibility, you really can design the life of your dreams. What choices would you have if you had more financial freedom and increased flexibility? And let me just say that you can tailor these words to you and your personality. This is, not the only way you can communicate these things. But what I'm doing is I'm sharing the 5 things that high achievers are looking for, sharing a little bit about how Mary Kay can offer that. And then again, that coaching question that's engaging her mind. When the mind is asked a question, it actually works 6 to 7 times faster and works harder and works in a different way. And it's forced to find an answer. Okay, your brain is this goal-oriented machine that when you're asked a question, your brain starts immediately working to find an answer. And again, the more beautiful the question, the more beautiful the answer. So when you're engaging your prospects in some of these questions, it's forcing them to think and consider some answers to these questions that they may have never have been asked before. What choices would you have if you had more financial freedom and increased flexibility? I didn't ask myself that question before Mary Kay, and that's not something people are daily asking themselves. And so you want to be that person who's asking those beautiful questions. Okay, so personal growth. I say Mary Kay is the greatest personal growth plan on the planet for women. You are actually forced to grow when you're in Mary Kay because you're usually forced to step outside of your comfort zone. And again, we want to say this because we want to attract women who are willing to step outside of their comfort zone. And then you go on to say, what personal growth would you experience if you had a safe place to develop yourself? And then the last one is money. And I go into how you can make a little or a lot with Mary Kay. And then I ask the question, what would you do with an extra $100, $500, or $5,000 a month? And those are 3 really good price points for someone who really just can't think big. You just got to ask her what she can do with an extra 100. 500, they're having a lot more choices with an extra 500, and 5,000 is for the big thinkers who want to see that you can and want to hear that you can really change your financial situation dramatically. So what would you do with an extra $100, $500, or $5,000 a month? And then I would, after I close that, I just say that we are actually looking for women who want these 5 things in a career, and that Mary Kay just has a beautiful way of offering these 5 things that high achieving women are looking for. So those are just some words for you to use in your marketing. And then I'm going to finish, you guys, with kind of changing the topic now. Okay, I'm switching topics, and then we're going to close with a poem tonight. Okay, probably my most favorite chapter in the book so far, The One Thing, is the chapter that he did on discipline and how the disciplined life is a lie. And I'm just going to kind of read through some highlights that I pulled out from the book. It says, he said, we don't need any more discipline than we already have. We just need to direct and manage our discipline a little bit better. We need discipline just long enough for a habit to kick in and take over. Isn't that encouraging? We don't need more discipline. We just need healthier habits. When you regularly work at something until, you want to regularly work at something until it regularly works for you. So he's talking about creating new habits. When you see people who look like disciplined people, what you're really seeing is people who've trained a handful of habits into their lives. Love that. He also talked about Michael Phelps, which I find so interesting, because I actually, in some of my training, I tell this story about Michael Phelps that I read about in The Power of Habit. There's this book called Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg, is how I think you say his last name, who talks about Michael Phelps and his habits. And so funny to read again about Michael Phelps and his habits. So he obviously must be known for this in creating these healthy habits. And so I'm actually going to tell you a story in just a few minutes about what I learned about Michael Phelps in The Power of Habit. But I thought that was so interesting that he was mentioned again in this book about how, we don't have to be just so disciplined. We just have to be disciplined enough to create healthy habits, and then our habits take over. Habits require much less energy and effort to maintain than to begin. Okay, so it's tough. It's tough to get a new habit going in your life, but then the energy, effort, and willpower that it needs to just maintain it once you have that habit is so much less. And this made me think of just my own journey as a newer consultant and director. You guys, a book 10 and 30 faces for a power start seems like daunting. They seem like these impossible tasks that it really required so much of my focus and my energy and my drive to get a book 10 on the date book by the 5th that usually produce 30 faces. I mean, like, whew, just thinking about it made me tired. Until something beautiful happened. I practiced those habits and those skills just long enough and had to be disciplined just long enough for the book 10 and power start habit to kick in. And then I promise you, I would have had to try harder not to do these things than to do them. They required very little energy after they became a habit. It was just sort of how things flowed. It was how it rolled. It was how my workday rolled, was to invest time in making sure book 10 and a power start was always happening. And it's just how I rolled. And it didn't require a lot of energy, which freed me up to give my energy and willpower and focus on building a bigger unit in a future area. And I find that the energy that I put into leadership and into coaching my people, I needed much more of that to focus on building my area and building a strong unit. Then my personal business was just on the side, just kind of running. It was just kind of running like a little machine. Freed up my willpower, my energy, and my focus to develop leaders and to coach leaders and to build a strength in my organization. Okay, so that's also what it can be for you when you have enough discipline to do it long enough until the habit kicks in. Another quote from the book is that the hard stuff becomes a habit, and habits make the hard stuff easy. Okay, hard stuff becomes habit. Because it's a habit, it makes that hard stuff easy because it's happening effortlessly. I thought this was very interesting. It takes on average 66 days. We hear it takes 21 days to create a habit, but if it's a hard one, like if it's a really tough one, it's going to take longer than that. And so that was good to know. The full range of when they studied it was anywhere from 18 days, so that would be easier habits, all the way up to 254, almost a year to create a habit. And so let's deal in reality. We need to do things probably longer than 21 days for the habit to really kick in. No one actually has the discipline to acquire more than one powerful new habit at a time. Good to know, right? We can't do it all. So let's be powerful women of healthy habits. And so now I'm going to walk you through a goal setting system that I personally use and that I train my sales directors to use. And this is a super practical step-by-step guide with the ultimate goal of creating healthy habits. And it's Darren Hardy's massive transformation formula. You guys, it's very, very similar to the concept that this book is walking you through. And it depends on where you've gotten in the book, but it's essentially walking you through questions to ask yourself to create the goal and then to create the one thing that is going to allow you to achieve that goal. This massive transformation formula, which I'm about to share with you, it is sort of the same concept, just slightly tweaked. Okay, but it's encouraging to read follow two different success people, and they're kind of practicing the same thing. They just have different ways of describing it. And sometimes it takes hearing it a different way for it to really click, or for you to catch a different concept of it. And so I'm going to share Darren Hardy's massive transformation formula. Ever since I heard this in his book, The Compound Effect, and I've heard him talk about it many, many more times, I approach every goal walking through this system. Like every single goal in Mary Kay or outside of Mary Kay, I plug it into this transformation formula. And so you start by answering the question, what would have to happen for you to say on June 30th, 2016, that this was the best seminar year ever? What would have to happen for you to say on June 30th or July 1st of 2016, when the seminar year is over, this was the absolute best seminar year ever? What would that one thing be? And if you can, write it down right now, write that goal down. And you can do this with any area of your life. And you can do it with any time frame. You can even ask the question this month, what would have to happen? We're on February 29th of 2016, I could say this was the best month ever. Okay, so you can do this with any area of your life and with any time frame. But I'm going to walk you through setting sort of a seminar goal that you're going to focus on. So what would it be on June 30th? What would that goal be? Write it down. And it has to be, you guys, the biggest mistake when people set goals is that they're vague. And there's just nothing exciting about vague. Vague plans equal vague results, and vague is not sexy. And so be specific, okay? Get it to be measurable, not just I want more directors, I want a bigger unit size. Get as specific as you possibly can. Okay, step 2. Now I want you to think of 2 to maybe 5, although 5 is a lot. So more like on the side of 2. And really, Gary Keller and Jay Papasan would say one thing. But what are a handful of key behaviors or activities that you can do every day that will directly influence that goal, that you can control? Okay, so you wrote the goal down. Now what 2 to 5 key behaviors or activities can you do every day that will directly influence that goal you just wrote down? And of course, they have to be things that you have control of, things that are within your power. We've got to know what the daily picture looks like. Just a real quick story. I was working with a business coach as I wrapped up my national area when we kind of were in our NIQ window, even though there's no such thing as NIQ anymore. We were in NIQ, and he asked me one question one day on our coaching call. He said, what daily goals do you need to accomplish to guarantee that you'll finish your area? And I'm like, that is a beautiful question that I don't know the answer to. It really stumped me. I'm like, I don't know. And at this time, you guys, I was a top director. We had earned 5 trips in a row ever since I was a first-year director. I had 8 or more first-line offspring. We were almost debuting as a national area. I mean, I was on my game and in the zone. And even at that time, I was like the queen of daily consistency. And I didn't know the answer. I did not know the answer of what I needed to do daily. So I had to spend some time really crunching numbers, thinking through some things, brainstorming, breaking it down. And what I came up with was I needed to be in front of 15 people every working day, which for me at that time was 6 working days of the week. I needed to be in front of 15 people a day. And those 15 people could be, my personal people or my unit's people. And let's say, at some guest events, we'd have 30 people there that would cover 2 days. So that would make up for maybe a day that we had less. And so that's what I figured out I needed to do. And that's what I tracked to finish our national area. So now my point is, if I didn't know, at that level, how much more sometimes do we not know, and that our consultants really don't know what the daily picture looks like? How clear are you on what you need to do every day? Because nothing changes in your life until you change what you do daily. And so what are the 2 to maybe 5 key behaviors or activities that you need to do that are very specific and very achievable that you can do every day. And they have to be just stupid simple stuff. It has to be stupid simple stuff that you know you can accomplish in a day. We can't end world hunger and we can't build a national area in a day. Okay, so it can't be very complicated. It can't be very too daunting of a task. They have to be super stupid simple tasks, 2 to 5 of them that you do every day. It's going to directly influence the goal that you wrote down. Let me tell you a quick story. Okay, and the big concept is that these 2 to 5 things are what we call your small daily wins, or your micro wins, or your baby wins. They're just small wins that don't seem significant in the moment. Like you do them and you're like, yeah, well, I haven't progressed yet. But that's the point. They're just small and simple, and you do them every day. The power is in consistency, and you do them every day consistently. So like your small daily wins are to your success and growth, just like compounding interest is to your money. When you invest your money, it's just growing a little bit and a little bit and a little bit, and all of a sudden it reaches that exponential growth. And then it's like growing by, exponential numbers. If you've ever heard the story of a magic penny that compounds over time, and it doesn't seem like anything's happening at first, and then all of a sudden, boom, you've got millions of dollars, okay? So same with your small daily wins. You do them and you do them and you do them and you do them. Doesn't seem like it doesn't seem like anything's happening, but then you do them and you do them and you do them and you do them, and it eventually produces massive growth. So I'll tell just a real quick story. I need to keep moving quickly, but how I applied this. Actually, this was right after I read the book. I read the book kind of the month after I had my second baby, Aria. And here's how the story goes. When I got pregnant with Ian, when that first trimester nausea and exhaustion and sickness set in, I stopped working out. And prior to that, I had always been pretty consistent in my life of working out and making working out a priority in my life. I played volleyball in college and lifted weights a lot in college. And so it was just sort of a part of my life to work out. And so when that first trimester nausea set in, it knocked me off my feet, stopped working out. And even after that first trimester, in the second trimester, I started feeling better. I still didn't pick up working out again. I don't know why. I think it's because my belly and my hips and my butt kept growing even when I was working out. And I'm like, this is pointless. So I didn't pick up working out again and did not work out for the rest of the pregnancy, had Ian, and then did not start working out again. And then got pregnant again when Ian was about, maybe 15 or 18 months old. Got pregnant again, Aria, and did not work out through that entire pregnancy, and then had Aria, and then read this book, The Compound Effect. And that's just when I decided, like, I have got to start taking care of myself. My energy was low. I felt weak. I didn't feel strong. I didn't feel confident. And then, on top of having 2 babies in a row, I was not feeling great about myself. And so I'm like, I have to start working out. But things I did before the babies were things like P90X and Insanity and some really intense workouts. And I knew I couldn't start there. I'm like, I can absolutely not start there, especially after reading that book. I'm like, that is the quickest way to fail at getting back into shape is to start too big or to start with something that's too daunting. So I'm like, okay, I can't start there. And so I started with this super simple workout that I did 3 days a week. And let me tell you what it was. It was 3 sets of 10 push-ups, just 10, and then 3 1-minute planks. When you hold yourself up on your toes and your arms. And that was it. It took me about 5 minutes. I did it in my office when my nanny was there. And I barely broke a sweat. I don't think I even did. But that's what I did. And for being a college athlete and somebody who's worked out, it felt like the lamest workout in the whole world. And I'm like, this is stupid. I'm not going anywhere with this. But what it did for me is it gave me a win. It gave me a win. I'm like, okay, I did it. I'm doing this. And so I did it 3 days a week for a while, and then I bumped it up to 5 days a week. And then I did that for a while. And then I started doing yoga on 1 day a week while maintaining my other really small workout on the other days. And then eventually I was doing yoga on more days a week. And then several months later, had gotten back into shape. But I was amazed by this small win concept, that like I just kept doing these little small things that kept building on each other until I was in a place where I felt really good and I was back into it, and it didn't feel like it was ever that difficult because I just kept building upon itself. And so that's what a small one has to be. It just has to be this small little thing that you're doing that you can achieve, that's stupid simple, and then it's going to grow and evolve from there. And the goal would be that these small wins would become your daily healthy habits, and that your what looks like a very disciplined life is just a life of really good habits. So, okay, so let me keep going. Once you decide what your 2 to 5 key behaviors are, the third step of this massive transformation formula is to track them daily. And to plug them into specific hours of your day. You know, a lot of you probably make a 6 most important things list, but you cannot stop with the list. You cannot wake up in the morning with just a list of things to do. Like, talk about set yourself up for failure. So you have to have a list, and then you take that list and you're plugging it into every 30 minutes of a beautifully designed day. That literally every 30 minutes or every hour, you've got a plan, and you're intentionally doing things and investing your time into things that are growing your business. So you take those 2 to 5 key behaviors and you're plugging them into the work hours of your day. Okay, so then you have to track it. I have a director, Kara May, who's a Premier Club sales director on her way to Cadillac, who started this. When I first trained my directors on this concept, she really grabbed a hold of it and started it a couple of years ago, and had this month at a glance calendar. And the way she tracked it is she wrote her little activities into each working day of her week. And then as she finished them, she highlighted them. And that's how she tracked it. I thought that was a great way to track it. And when she started doing this, I'll just tell a quick story about her. She didn't see a whole lot of fruit or results from it, but then momentum really kicked in and earned her car and her next car very, very quickly, and has always been very intentional about these key daily habits. And so that would be one way to track it, is a month at a glance calendar. Okay, so now let me finish with like the mindset and the power of these small daily wins, and like how this affects your brain and how it actually affects like endorphins and chemical reactions that happen in your body. It's a really powerful concept. And this is what I'm going to tell you the story about Michael Phelps. And I read this in the book called The Power of Habit, which really supports some of the concepts we're learning in The One Thing. Okay, so I'm going to actually read this story, so bear with me. This is going to take me a couple of minutes, but I think it just really beautifully paints the picture of the power of getting small daily wins and how this has to be a part of every single day for you. Okay, here we go. When Michael Phelps' alarm clock went off at 6:30 a.m. on the morning of August 13th of 2008, he crawled out of bed in the Olympic Village in Beijing and fell right into his routine. He pulled on a pair of sweatpants and walked to breakfast. He had already won 3 gold medals earlier that week, giving him 9 in his career, and he had 2 races that day. By 7 a.m., he was in the cafeteria eating his regular race day menu of eggs, oatmeal, and 4 energy shakes. Those were the first of more than 6,000 calories he would consume over the next 16 hours. His first race, the 200-meter butterfly, was his strongest event, and it was scheduled at 10 a.m. 2 hours before the starting gun fired, he began his usual stretching regimen. At 8:30, he was in the pool for his first warm-up, which took exactly 45 minutes, and he did the exact same routine he always does. At 9:15, he exited the pool and started squeezing into his LZR racer suit, a bodysuit so tight it required 20 minutes of tugging to put it on. Talk about Spanx. Then he clamped headphones over his ears and cranked up the normal hip-hop mix he always played before every race. Phelps had started swimming when he was 7 years old to burn off some energy that was driving his mom and his teachers crazy. When a local swimming coach named Bob Bowman saw Phelps' long torso, big hands, and relatively short legs, he knew that Phelps could become a champion because he had the perfect swimmer's body. But Phelps was very emotional. He had trouble calming down. His parents were actually divorcing at the time, and he was having a lot of emotional stress. And so Bowman taught him a concept that changed his life and helped him become the champion swimmer that he is today. He designed a series of behaviors that Phelps could do every day to calm himself down and to focus before a race. He essentially taught him to design his day and his mind to get small wins at every moment by developing healthy habits and a routine. And a huge body of research has shown that small wins have enormous power. Once a small win has been accomplished, forces are set into motion that favors another small win. If you were to ask Michael what he's doing, what's going on in his head before a competition, he would say he's not really thinking about anything. He's just following his routine. But that's not right. It's more like his habits. His habits have taken over. And when the race arrives, he's more than halfway through his plan, and he's been victorious at every step. All the stretches went like planned. The warm-up was just like he visualized. His headphones were on and playing exactly what he expected. The actual race and competition is just another step in the plan that started earlier that day and has been nothing but victory after victory after victory. And the big victory of winning the race and winning the gold is just the gold medal. It's just a natural extension of small wins he had designed and achieved all day long. So back in Beijing, it was 9:56 a.m., 4 minutes before the race's start, and Phelps stood behind his starting block, bouncing slightly on his toes. When the announcer said his name, Phelps stepped onto the block, as he always did before a race, and then he stepped back down, as he always did before a race. He swung his arms 3 times, as he had before every race he had ever swam since he was 12 years old. He stepped up on the blocks again, got into his stance, and when the gun sounded, he leapt. Right when he dove into the water on this particular race, Phelps knew that something was immediately wrong. There was moisture inside his goggles, and they began immediately filling up with water. His coach had actually trained him to be so mentally tough by getting small wins each day, and he had actually mentally rehearsed how he would respond to goggle failure. And so as he started his last lap of the race, he was completely blind. His goggles were completely filled with water. And swimmers actually rely on being able to see their competition to the left and to the right, but he could not see that. And so he started to estimate how many strokes he would need to finish the race strong in this last lap. He figured it had to be 18 strokes. And so he started anticipating the wall. He could hear the crowd roaring, but since he was blind, he had no idea if they were cheering for him or for someone else. 19 strokes and then 20. It felt like he needed one more. So he made one 21st huge stroke and glided with his arms outstretched and touched the wall. He had timed it perfectly, despite being blind. When he ripped off his goggles and looked up at the scoreboard, it said WR by his name, world record. He had won another gold and broken a world record by swimming blind, and his coach believes that it was his ability and his practice of creating small wins, in addition to the mental toughness that were produced by creating small wins, that enabled him to win under less than ideal circumstances. And that's the point that I really want to drive home with you guys, is that deciding on your key behaviors in your daily activities, it has 2 advantages. First of all, you're actually doing the work it takes to grow. And then secondly, small wins set you up for massive victory. Small wins create other small wins that create other small wins until it just becomes a habit. And success begets more success. You get used to winning every day. You get used to winning, so that the big victory almost just becomes a natural and obvious result of small wins after small wins after small wins. Your big win grows out of small daily wins. There's actually a chemical reaction that happens in your brain that when you have a small win, or when your brain perceives that you are winning. Scientists have actually studied marathon runners, and marathon runners are able to sprint across the finish line. And scientists have wanted to study this because miles back, a lot of marathon runners are hitting the wall and they want to quit and they almost give up, and their body and their mind starts to shut down, and they can even experience a sense of depression. So how then are they able to sprint across the finish line? So scientists believe it's because of what happens in the brain. They call it the X spot. When your brain recognizes that success is not only possible, but also probable and likely, the reaction is physically powerful. The brain releases a flood of endorphins and other chemicals that actually give your mind and your body energy to accelerate. Our brains are a goal-oriented machine, constantly making assessments, and I find this to be very interesting. Your brain is always making assessments about how far away a goal is, how likely it is that you'll achieve it, and the likely effort that you'll have to put in to achieve it. Your brain is always making assessments. And so your brain is responding to how you are perceiving those things. Okay, how you're perceiving those things. And the good news is that we can actually control how we perceive how far away a goal is, how likely it is, and the effort we'll have to put in to actually achieve it. We can control that perception. And small wins are how we control it. And so, because as you get small wins, it makes it seem to your brain like success is likely and probable and attainable. And so we can intentionally tap into our own X spot to release extra energy needed to achieve a big goal. And that's where daily wins come in. When you can create success daily and can create wins daily, your brain actually perceives that you're on target, and it perceives that you're getting closer, and it perceives that success is likely and probable. And being the goal-oriented machine that it is, it actually works to your advantage in achieving the goal. And we all know the alternative. Okay, so what is the alternative to creating small wins in your mind and letting your mind perceive that success is likely and possible? The alternative is not setting yourself up for daily wins and not designing your life to get wins. And what is the feeling of that? Not getting small wins every day. We start to feel defeated. We feel like we're losing. We feel like we're behind. We feel like everybody's passing us up. We have this sense that we'll never catch up. And so we start to say things like, I'm losing. I'm not ranked where I want to be. I'm behind. I'll never catch up. Why even try? I'll start all over next week, next month, next quarter, next year. And when your brain perceives those thoughts that I just mentioned, and those emotions, it works as if that is truth, that you are defeated, you are behind, you are a loser, you aren't winning. Why even try? When you're feeding your brain those thoughts and those emotions, it works as if that's true, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And a lot of directors are stuck in this cycle of negativity. And one simple, practical solution is to design your day to get small wins, like small, stupid wins, and let it be a win and celebrate that win. And let that win lead to another win, lead to another win, lead to another win. And you guys, I'm talking like stupid stuff. Like you wake up when your alarm clock goes off. That's a win. That's a win. Okay? I'm talking about simple stuff like that. You go to bed when you said you would. That's a win. Okay? So you've got to create and design your day and your life to get win after win after win. You know, he mentioned things like stretches and what he ate for breakfast and the music he always listened to. That's what I'm talking about when we're talking about small, simple wins, is just designing it to give you a sense of victory. And so I thought it would be appropriate, as we're talking about winning, to finish with a poem that I have come to love. And it's called The Race. And I've read this to my area, so it'll be familiar to them, and maybe some of you have heard it. But I just adore this poem for so many reasons, and I feel like it's a description of my journey, and it's been such an inspiration to me. And so I'm going to close out with that tonight, and I just pray it's an inspiration to you also. So this is called The Race. Whenever I start to hang my head in front of failure's face, my downward fall is broken by the memory of a race. A children's race, young boys, young men, how I remember well. Excitement, sure, but also fear, it wasn't hard to tell. They all lined up so full of hope, each thought to win that race. Or tie for first, or if not that, at least take second place. Their parents watched from off the side, each cheering for their son, and each boy hoped to show his folks that he would be the one. The whistle blew and off they flew like chariots of fire. To win, to be the hero there was each young boy's desire. One boy in particular, whose dad was in the crowd, was running in the lead and thought, my dad will be so proud. But as he speeded down the field and crossed a shallow dip. The little boy who thought he'd win lost his step and slipped. Trying hard to catch himself, his arms flew every place. Amidst the laughter of the crowd, he fell flat on his face. And as he fell, his hope fell too. He wouldn't win it now. Humiliated, he just wished to disappear somehow. But as he fell, his dad stood up and showed his anxious face, which to the boy so clearly said, "Get up and win that race." He quickly rose, no damage done, behind a bit, that's all, and ran with all his mind and might to make up for his fall. So anxious to restore himself, to catch up and to win, his mind went faster than his legs. He slipped and fell again. He wished that he had quit before with only one disgrace. "I'm helpless as a runner now. I shouldn't try to race." But through the laughing crowd, he searched and found his father's face, with a steady look that said again, "Get up and win that race." And so he jumped up to try again, 10 yards behind the last. If I'm to gain those yards, he thought, I've got to run real fast. Exceeding everything he had, he gained 8, then 10. But trying hard to catch the lead, he slipped and fell again. Defeat. He lay there silently, a tear dropped from his eyes. There's no sense in running anymore. 3 strikes, I'm out. Why try? I've lost, so what's the use, he thought. I'll live with my disgrace. But then he thought about his dad, who soon he'd have to face. Get up, an echo sounded low. You haven't lost it all. For all you have to do to win is rise each time you fall. Get up, the echo urged him on. Get up and take your place. You were not meant for failure here. Get up and win that race. And so up he rose to run once more, refusing to forfeit. And he resolved to win or lose. And he resolved that win or lose, at least he wouldn't quit. So far behind the others now, the most he'd ever been, still he gave it all he had. And he ran like he could win. 3 times he'd fallen stumbling, 3 times he rose again. Too far behind to hope to win, he still ran to the end. They cheered another boy who crossed the line and won first place, head high and proud and happy, no falling, no disgrace. But when the fallen youngster crossed the line in last place, the crowd gave him a greater cheer for finishing the race. And even though he came in last with head bowed low, unproud, you would have thought he'd won that race to listen to the crowd. And to his dad, he sadly said, I didn't do so well. To me, you won, his father said. You rose each time you fell. And now when things seem dark and bleak and difficult to face, the memory of that little boy helps me in my own race. For all of life is like a race, with ups and downs and all. And all you have to do to win is rise each time you fall. And when depression and despair shout loudly in my face, another voice within me says, get up and win that race. And so that's my message as we close. Get up and win your race. I know directorship is not for the faint of heart. It is not for the weak woman. It's for the strong, and it's for the woman who's willing to fail.